Okay, hold on. I got to ask about this. When you say the first one to pass since the 1970s, do you mean from the unit you were currently in?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
yeah. Not obviously there'd be no regiment, but
Yeah.
a bunch of old guys from the '60s. But um, yeah, so the last guy who had joined the SAS before me was actually my first ever commanding officer when I joined the infantry. When I joined, so the unit I joined was called the Royal Highland Fusiliers. It was a Scottish infantry battalion, and no one was in the SAS from there. And one guy had been, and that was the commanding officer. The guy who was in charge of the whole unit, and he had joined in the '70s. Um, and no one else had managed to get in since then. So you can imagine it's a bit like, sometimes others have got to succeed before other people will believe it's possible. Otherwise, if the opposite happens and people go forward and people fail, it kind of demoralizes future generations and just makes people think that what's the point in even trying because he didn't get in and he's better than me in my mind. So why would they take me? So it was a big step, but then I suppose it was such a big step that there wasn't really any pressure. You could see it in two ways. It was a double-sided coin. In one hand, there's lots of pressure because it's a big step, and you're leaving yourself open to criticism if you don't get in. The told you so. People will be the first to say, "Yeah, well, I knew you were too young, or you were above your station, or you were out of your depth." And then in the flip side of that, there was no pressure at all because I thought, well, no one else is doing it. I don't really have anyone to compare against. It's not like I'm not doing what other people have done. I would be the first. So if I don't get in, then I'm just another one of the people that didn't get in. But if I do get in, then that's quite going to be pretty special. So that's what kept me motivated.
I love that. I love the mindset of that. But on the point of failure, you're talking about the fear of failure, maybe the scary monster in the closet. People don't want to open it up and look. Was there a moment when you were going through that selection where you thought to yourself, man, maybe I'm not really cut out for this? And if that did happen, how did you manage to push through it?
Yeah, lots of times. I mean, I suppose the 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 most obvious example of that I can think of as a memory was when we did the jungle training phase. So you go out to Brunei and excuse my Siri's just gone off there. Sorry,
No, it's fine.
must have been something. Must have been something I said that triggered it. Anyway, so when we go out to Brunei and do the jungle training, there's a lot of pressure on. It's probably the time where I think I was under the most pressure because everyone's watching you all the time. Everything you do, everyone's watching you, and the pressure does get to you, and you do question yourself. So it could be how long you let something stay in your head, and it's a mind game because if and they do this on purpose. They do this because they want to see how you'll handle it. Will you fold under pressure? Because if you fold under pressure on a training course, are you going to fold under pressure when the shit hits the fan in operations? And so it's a very testing environment. And that's what gets to a lot of people. A lot of people, they fail themselves. And I say this all the time. And this is something that if there's someone watching this now that is thinking maybe I should try SAS selection, then I would remember this is that they don't actually fail that many people. People seem to think they're just misconception of you get to the end and they fail loads of people. If you get to the very end, you pass. Not that many people get to the very end of selection, and then in fact, no one I've ever known has got to the very end and failed. You'll be gone before that point. But there's a pivotal point right in the middle, which is after the jungle phase, you're then midway through the course. So it's a 6 month course. End of the jungle phase, you're 3 months in. But that is really from that point on, you've got like they call them the hardcore element. So you've got the hardcore element that is left to do the rest of the course, and nothing else is quite as hard as the jungle. And so you've gotten through the worst or the hardest part. But I remember when we did the jungle phase, they don't tell you if you've passed. So you've got this huge waiting game. So you finish your training in the jungle, you get to the end of the exercise, you come out of the jungle, you de-rig all your kit, you have a celebratory sort of we've finished night. We call it the smoker, which is like having a few beers and steaks and all that. And no one knows if they've passed. And there were some guys on my course that were like, "Oh yeah, I spoke to one of the DS last night, one of the staff. He gave me the wink and the nod, and he says, 'Don't worry, So some guys were getting this nod, and I was like, I didn't get a nod. No one winked at me, no one nodded at me. I don't know. I'm clueless, I don't know if I have passed. And so you then have the long haul flight all the way back to the UK, and I remember sat in the plane just in my own head so much, and I was reliving all the moments of all the little things that had happened, good, bad, and ugly. And I thought to myself, I'm not sure if I've really passed this or not. I knew I hadn't done anything bad. I knew I'd done pretty well, but you can never be sure. And because I was so young, I thought maybe they're going to tell me that I'm just too young, or because I've heard that before as well. They'd said to some people in the past that you're too young, go away and come back in 3 years' time. And that had happened. So I thought maybe I'm one of those guys. Anyway, got back to Hereford, and you then have a weekend away, and you come back, and that's sorry, before you go away for the weekend, it is before you depart for the weekend, you get told, and you get put in this one big room. Everyone goes in the same room. It's like a big cinema, training room, and the chief instructor comes in and he says, the following names go and see the training officer, and my surname begins with B, so my surname is Bruce. So I was always quite early in the nominal roll, so they did it alphabetical order. And so they started reeling off these names. And as I was sat there, they got past B, they went on to C, D, and some people started, standing up and walking out of the room. And then I've got to figure out which half am I in? Am I the people that staying going to fail, or the people that are going to fail? So I looked around the room, and all the guys who were still sat down were all the really good soldiers. And some of the guys who were stood up and walking out were the ones who were maybe told halfway through, you might not pass. So I was like 99% sure. I was like, I'm in the right half, unless I made a mistake. And then they all left, and there was like less than half of us left in that room. So it'd be like chunked right down again. There's probably, I don't know, 20 people left or something out of like 250. And then we got the news that you guys are the hardcore element. Congratulations, you've passed. So and that was a huge moment for me. That was like, I knew then. I thought, see, even if something happens after this, I've now got that far that no matter what happens, I'm at the point now that no one else has actually done, which was a magical moment for me. But there was many times that I questioned myself, absolutely, loads of times that I thought I might not be good enough or was going to fail. But one thing that didn't cross my mind was giving up. I honestly, hand on heart, not one time during the whole process did I ever consider throwing the towel in. And that's what a lot of people do. And I think that's the difference. They want guys that do not quit. Not the perfect guy, not the guy with all the skills already. Skills can be taught as long as you can adapt and assimilate new skills. That's what they want. They just want a really good basic platform to work from. Someone who's got all the basics dialed in and is willing to learn. Someone who's got humility. Someone who's willing to listen. So it's not about being the finished product. They create that. They mold you.